everybody. Hi. Welcome to Tuesday Talk with Deanna. I have a special guest with me today. Most of you may know Caroline Ritenour. She is simply amazing. She you really are. And we're gonna dig into that,
Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
typically, if you're joining in for the first time, Tuesday Talk is unscripted. We have no idea what the topic is going to be. We just kind of flow with the conversation, talking about business and marketing and entrepreneurship and just all the stuff that we juggle as entrepreneurs. Today, I am doing a little bit differently. I reached out to Caroline and I said, "Can we talk about your ADHD?" But it truly is her superpower. Like the way that her brain works blows me away. And I'm so envious. And she gave me like two thumbs up, like, absolutely, we can talk about that. So today we do have a topic, but this is not scripted.
No, it's not.
It's not scripted at all. She has no idea. I don't have any idea where the conversation is going to go. We're just going to be talking. But Caroline, welcome so
Hi.
much. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks.
Now you are the owner of All Ability Swim
Correct.
and YoFresh Food. You're the co-owner. You and your
Co-owner of
husband
YoFresh Food.
own
Mhm.
YoFresh Food.
Yep.
Um, it seems like you do everything. Is there anything
Yep.
else?
We just acquired another company. Plant Love Nutrition. So my husband and I will be adding that to our repertoire as well. It's still a soft takeover. It's not even a takeover. It's a soft pick up and move, and we're just trying to start getting the ball rolling and start with that task. Like we just had a marketing meeting yesterday for the first
Did
time.
you
So
really?
yeah,
Okay.
it's just starting down the pipeline of the transition over, and but the documents are signed, so that's three. And I started other companies too in the past. So I was the founder of Piranha Aquatics in Salem. So it was a swim club. I've been a swimmer my whole life, and I started a swim club in my hometown. There was no pool growing up, so I did that for a decade, and then I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I just didn't know it was like
Isn't
entrepreneurship.
that funny though that is? I think
Yeah,
that's
so
true for a lot of us.
I remember my first business was making labels for teachers in school. And so if we think about like my entrepreneurship where it's always like creating holes where something doesn't exist, this was back when um the teachers didn't have their own computers, right? Like it was really new. And we did at my house because my dad was like a computer nerd. So I used to get the class lists and the teachers would pick from clip art, and I would make these like label sheets of all their classrooms. So they had labels and they paid me to do it. And so
That's
I
hysterical.
was in like fifth grade when I did that. But yeah. So, and I've had entrepreneurship since I was little. So my first business idea was a dishwashing service. I've never liked chores at home ever. And I wanted my dog to lick everyone's dishes so that they wouldn't have to, right. Well, I was like 4. So, but I knew it
Oh,
was
that gives me the
scary.
squeeze
So I
though,
was
but
going
I know, I mean, I've seen
yeah,
that. I'm like,
direction so that they wouldn't see the dog licking the place. I mean, I was 4.
okay, all right,
I
yeah.
was very young with this like this idea, maybe 6, but did not take it to fruition or any than the idea phase. But just thinking back when people ask me about that journey, like where did it start? And I'm like, I think it was always just I need to find a way to make this easier. I need to find a way to make um this simpler. I hate doing this thing. I need to find a different way to do it so I don't have to do it or it's not so hard for me. But
Yeah.
now knowing I didn't get diagnosed until I was 36 with ADHD. So now I look back and I go, oh, I was just hacking my ADHD the whole time. And I had no clue that's what I've been doing. Most of the stuff that I do, I was just hacking my ADHD to make the world work for my brain. And so here I
Yeah,
am.
and right, and I love that you are mentioning that, and that's a great way to start talking about ADHD because I call it your superpower. Like when you and I get together and we are talking about a project or whatever, you Airtable is one area, right?
Yes,
Let's
love
go there.
Airtable.
If you've used Airtable, I'm like, oh, there's a learning curve. It probably took me 6 months to seriously dig into Airtable because I just had too much on my plate. I couldn't put the energy into focusing on it. And you were like, "Oh, I created this spreadsheet." And it
I
wasn't
created
even
this
a
task
spreadsheet. It was
management
like his
system in a
whole
weekend.
systems. I'm like, "You what?" Like, I'm still in the coloring book phase,
Mhm.
and you're like
Yeah,
building
I built a whole,
recipes.
like, POS system to run our daycare program at YoFresh before I even knew what to do to run a daycare program because I just knew I wouldn't be able to manage it on my own. So, what I love about Airtable the most, though, is, like, most software you buy and you have to change your behaviors to meet the software, in your workflows, where Airtable, I could create systems to work with my brain and like to create what I needed help with. So I could create software essentially with Airtable to help me function. And so and help me manage things that were hard. And so we use Asana now at YoFresh for our task management because it's more user friendly. I would prefer to stay in Airtable. It's also more cost effective for our business, where being still kind of the early, like we're not quite in the startup phase, but we're not in the like I don't know where
Right,
we
I
are.
get it.
We've been in that evolving weird startup phase now. It's our 4th year. So, but it's still just not effective to pay for Airtable for 9 users, and some people don't even get in there. And so,
Right.
Asana is a better fit for us there, but I still miss Airtable in my
I
task
know
system
you do.
all the time.
I
And,
know you love it. So,
yeah, so
how did you find out that you had ADHD? Like, and I've never asked you this before.
right. So I was coaching and I started there were some kids on the team that had autism. They started coming into the team that they were already knew how to swim and they had autism and I was teaching them how to, like they were on the team. And I got this grant from Autism Speaks. I started teaching all these kids with autism how to learn to swim. And then I started getting I traditionally had a lot of boys and then I started getting girls and I was like, oh, they're very different. This autism is different in them. And I need to research this. And so I started looking up like what it was like for girls on the spectrum with autism. And I ended up in some Asperger articles about girls and Asperger's. And I remember like printing them out and highlighting everything. And I took it into my therapist one day and I just laid it down. I was like, do I have Asperger's? This makes sense. And she said, no, you can't have Asperger's. It's not in the DSM anymore. All the stuff you're highlighting is actually ADHD. And so she pulled the DSM out because I need the data and she starts reading it to me. And I'm an avid reader, like hundreds of books a year, like, well, maybe 100 some books a year, not hundreds. But I started trying to listen to what she was saying, and then I was like, I forgot to pay attention. Like I listened to like 2 bullet points, and she just kind of looked at me because I was like, I don't
Like,
have
I rest my
ADHD.
case.
There's no way. Like I hyper focus. Like I can play piano for 3 hours, and I won't even know 3 hours went by. Like there's no way I have ADHD. And so what she helped me figure out was that a lot of ADHD also looks very different in women compared to what we see it's not just squirrel, I'm going to go change directions. So what we see in the media and how it's portrayed tends to be a little bit more boy and it's all stereotypical, but there's a lot of stuff under the surface that women are dealing with. And it's a lot of like overwhelm and anxiety and things like that. And it's just really hard to prioritize tasks and it can be really challenging, but it's also really fun. So and I'm still, as I've worked through my ADHD plan, and I've gotten it more managed, I found the right medications that work for my brain. And for the first time in my life, I'm not driven to work by anxiety, which I didn't even know was happening. I've had to like relearn how to work, but I can actually stop working now instead of like feeling this need to continue working all the time, which is also sometimes tricky because sometimes I just don't want to work now because I don't have this anxious thing pushing me. But now that I've kind of gotten my workspace set up for me and my brain and systems, now I still have a tendency to think I'm still spectrum. So, and I'm working on getting up the guts to go try to get a diagnosis. And I've met enough women to know it looks very different. And there's a lot of women I relate to in the world very much, and they're also all autistic. And so a lot of them are ADHD and autistic, and some are just autistic, but I fit in that world. So, we just kind of use the term like neurodiverse is the like blanket term for all these like autism, ADHD, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're on TikTok, they call it neurospicy because we're a little, our brains are spicy, which is funny because neurotypicals, which is a person without ADHD, autism, those kind of things, is a neurobland on TikTok, which is kind of funny. But it's just how we've reframed it. So like we're the spicy. And if you think about it, you know, spicy or bland. So that's just kind of how it works.
Right. So I have a question for you. And I just kind of want a little bit of
Yeah,
clarity to make sure that I
sure.
understand. So you were looking into understand why these girl swimmers were different
Yep.
who had autism,
Yep.
and you uncovered Asperger's and said,
Uh-huh.
this looks just like
Yes.
me.
Right.
And they said, well, it can't be because
There is
it's,
no Asperger's anymore. It's not in the
which
DSM.
I didn't even know that. I had no idea that that doesn't exist anymore. So
Right.
then
It's been out
they
since this 5, the 5. They took it out. So there's some
okay,
historical context with uh oh golly, Germany, the Nazis, and like how um they treated people with autism, and Asperger's is actually named after somebody in that was in the Nazi regime that was like studied.
oh, is
So
that why they
it's a
removed it?
very negative connotation. It's not why they took it out, but that's why like the autistic community doesn't like it. That's
So
the
then
blanket overview. But they took it out because what they were seeing was a lot of comorbidities. So like sensory processing disorder, this. So I kind of look at it now that like autism is this like umbrella, like
okay.
autism, it's a
Right, it's a
spectrum,
huge
right?
umbrella,
Right. And
actually.
it's not a linear spectrum, it's like a
Right,
three-dimensional spiky
right.
thing. And then I kind of really truly believe ADHD like kind of falls under the autism spectrum in all honesty, just because there's so much overlap. And in the UK, they're a little farther ahead in this world of the autism ADHD, and they kind of tend to group it together a little more. It's not quite there yet, but I have a lot of friends in the UK I work with now because of Focus
So
Mate, and I learn about what they're doing in the UK, so I get a little bit more of that information a little sooner than here. Um, yeah, go ahead.
interesting. So then there's a lot of similarities between the 2.
There are, but there's
It's
also
not really 2
differences,
separate things. 'Cause I'm like, "Wait, you're using the words interchangeably,
kind of,
but
because that's
they're
my me.
they're" Right, no,
Yeah.
I know, and
Yeah,
that's
we
why I'm
don't
trying
have
to
an
make
official
sense
autism
because of it.
diagnosis, so I don't know how to talk about it in the best way.
I
Like,
get
I'm
it,
still
but
trying
it's
to.
like autism is the big umbrella, which there's
Right.
several different spectrums all
Yeah, and
over the
ADHD
place
is its
from
own
mild to severe.
diagnosis in the DSM, and there's no longer ADD, it's not a thing, it's all just ADHD, and you either get diagnosed with the hyperactivity side, um, the impulsive side, or a combined type. So
Okay.
I have combined ADHD because I'm hyperactive, but not in my I mean, I am fidgety in my body. I remember doing a talk for you one time, and I watched my video later, and
I
I didn't
do
stop
that
moving
too.
the whole
I
time.
know. I've
Um,
always been fidgety,
but
but
my,
I don't think I have ADHD.
yeah, but my hyperactivity is in my brain, right? So for a neurotypical person, I've learned that like they'll sit down to do a task and they don't think about anything but that task. When I'm doing a task, especially one that's not very challenging, I think of like 42 ideas for something else. And it's really hard not to jump to that topic. That's that impulsivity, right? Like I want to go do
Yeah,
this next thing. And I do have to allow my brain time to do those things at certain times of the week. Otherwise, I can't, I just kind of, it just does, my brain just shuts down after a while because it does naturally want to jump task to task. But I might be able to pick maybe 3 tasks I need to get done this morning. Like one was like clearing out all my emails, reviewing Asana, and then my paper piles. I don't necessarily have to do all 3 of those in a linear fashion. They just need done.
yeah,
So like I know these are the 3 main things I need to do today. So as long as I'm working on these 3 main things this morning, it doesn't matter what order I do them in, as long as they get done. So I might spend 20 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and 20 minutes here, and then jump back here and do 10, and then 5, and then 3. But then it's eventually it gets done, and it's awful. And I don't track it quite that way.
right.
But if I don't give myself some like boundaries about being able to jump around a little, I can't do anything, and I will just be frozen. And then I might hyper focus on a task, which is bonus. And that means I won't stop working on it, or sometimes can be detrimental. This is the paradox because I won't be able to stop working on it because I'm afraid if I stop working on it, I won't be able to get started again. And that happens a lot.
Yeah,
So with a lot of people with ADHD. So it's that like learning where those are. So before I start a task now, my Brene Brown uses paint it done as her, like, so I just ask myself that I need to ask questions. I say, what does done look like? Like, how much can I work on this giant task until I can come to a stopping point? And what does that stopping point look like? So before I even get started, I try to think about, if I have 50 minutes, what can I get done? So if I only have 50 minutes and I get pulled away, I'm at a stopping point where I can pick back up later. I can always add more, but I don't have to accomplish all the tasks. Go ahead. It's really it's hard to explain. And I know I'm talking in circles, and that's part
that's okay. I'm following you. And I'm going to go back and repeat things just so it's a little bit clearer too. So when you come up with a task, so you're thinking of an ending point, not so much of a time ending point, but progress ending.
Right. So time blindness is big for ADHD. We often think, oh, this will take 10 minutes and it takes 4 hours. Or it's the other way. We will convince ourselves that folding laundry will take an hour and a half of our lives. So we will avoid it for 5 days. And it only takes 10 minutes, except now we have to put it back in the dryer first. So now it does take an hour and a half to put it in the dryer. Then you forget the dryer, buzz, and then you put the dryer back on again. And then you finally get it done. So, it works. Time blindness works both ways. Could be productive or
interesting. So there's time blindness that you have. And you mentioned one thing, right? Which I get that to a point. I do. I think I've gone through some of that myself.
Well, I mean, and some of it, when you're like writing code, it takes as long as it takes, right? Because like sometimes you can solve it in 2 seconds and sometimes it takes 5 hours and you just don't know. But there's certain things that, like, if a task normally, if I don't time myself doing specific tasks, I don't actually know how long it takes, right? So perfect example, when I used to do all the YoFresh orders every Friday morning, I think, oh, it takes me 30 minutes. Well, I actually started timing myself using like a time tracker app at one point, and Airtable. It was when I
used
Airtable. I built those buttons in Airtable back then, and I tracked how long it took me. And then over like 6 to 8 weeks, I realized on average, it takes me an hour and a half. But sometimes if there was a problem, it would take me 3 hours. So now I know, before I outsource this to my virtual assistant, that I need to plan for meal prep to take 3 hours to process every Friday, like just to make sure it's done correctly, start to finish. The kitchen can do their job. And like they don't need to talk to me all weekend, right? They have everything they need. And so then if it gets done sooner, it's a bonus, but at least I've blocked out that 3 hours. So normally it can get done faster, but there were weeks I couldn't. So instead of the rest of the day falling off track.
So one tip you have is to block off some time.
Yep.
What are some other tips? Like what helped you in the beginning, not now, but in the beginning when you were realize it?
I hired an ADHD coach last summer.
Right.
Yes. And it was great. And I graduated ADHD coaching that was supposed to take like 6 months and like 6 weeks because I was already
so not surprised. Oh my God. Not shocking.
Might be a little bit of an overachiever. No, but in all honesty, he was like, I don't know what you need from me because you already have all these like coping skills. I just didn't know that I'd already developed them. And since I'm a self-learner, nobody'd ever said to me like, oh yeah, that's an ADHD coping, right? Nobody knew. I just was doing them behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so after working through with my coach, we kind of fast-tracked stuff. And it was that was really helpful for me to find out and get confirmation that what I was doing was good. And he helped me find a couple little holes that I worked on. And, being like, emotionally being rejected can feel like just internally devastating. Like it's this weird thing. And but like working through some strategies there, and was probably what I got the most out of that ADHD coach, and confirmation that I was doing better than I thought, because like how I was. And now I'm realizing that my ability to build systems is probably some of my like the autism side of me. So
you're amazing at building systems.
That part of it is right. That's that part. Yeah. I started. So like if you want to try to time block, it doesn't do any good just to block time.
You gotta love going live with Biggie.
Yeah, with the dog in the back.
I am like, and I'm trying to like pet him over here, but there was a dog walking by. So
okay.
This is live. This is how it goes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't even notice, honestly, because I was
really okay. So I'm like, well, that's good. Maybe.
So during the pandemic, my life shifted immensely. So I went from a world where I worked in aquatics full time my whole life, and that's all I've ever known, to working full time at YoFresh, right? YoFresh was the side hustle. Everything switched, and I had to almost like relearn how to work because I had used swimming as a way to control my time, right? The more stuff I have on my schedule, the more productive I am because there's only limited time to screw around. So you got to get to work. There's not a lot of downtime.
Yeah, I get
COVID
that. Yeah.
changed all of that, right? Because there was nothing on the schedule whatsoever. I didn't have swim lessons to help me like get my time, like I have to leave at 2 for swim lessons. So I've got to get this done. What I found through that, I found this service called FocusMate, and I rave about it all the time. So and sometimes with ADHD too, we have to go like side quest before we can get to what helps you. So FocusMates help me the most. So I pay, it's a $5 a month service for unlimited. It's basically a virtual body double. So at any time you can get on this service. You can do like 3 sessions a week for free, but you can get on and you can book within a 15-minute increment, either a 25-minute or a 50-minute session. And at that time, you're matched randomly with somebody all over the world. And then you get on, and people think it's really weird, but really after you do one, it's not a big deal. And you just say, hey, like I'm working on this thing. This is what I'm focusing on. So now I'm creating a verbal intention. And then I use the chat box to put down like what my plans are. And then they say the same thing. They work on their own thing. And then you just mute yourselves. And then in 50 minutes, the timer goes off and you unmute yourself and you say, I got this done. And they say, I got this done. And you say, bye. And you never see them again, which is great because maintaining friendships can be really hard with ADHD because it's just hard. So it's nice to like have, or you're not trying to have an accountability buddy and somebody's schedule changes and then like they're not showing up. And you like, as an ADHD person, like if I was scheduled to go to the gym with you and you cancel on me, I'm not going to the gym because having an appointment with you is what's getting me to go to the gym, not Caroline going to the gym. And I'm just glad you're tagging along. I'm creating an appointment for myself to go, right? Like just like a doctor's appointment, which is why personal training works for me, because it's an appointment. Where come to class whenever, not so good. Right? Like
you would not show up.
No, well, I mean, it depends on the life. Like I CrossFit for a while and I did pretty good, but it's a lot easier to talk yourself out of a group class where nobody really, knows if you're coming or not than it is to, So but anyway, so I started using FocusMate, and that helped me also with time management because I started to realize I would think I was going to get like 13 things done in a session and I might get 2. And so it started helping me also understand what time felt like. I also think
that's an interesting point.
I think I manage time better too with analog clocks and not digital because it's a much more visual way to see time passing.
Analog clocks.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier to see patterns on analog clocks, right? Like 15, 30, 45, even 35 seconds, right? Or 35 minutes.
So that
0, 35, 10, 50.
Focused as well.
Mm-hmm. So I have one of these lovely little timers on my desk.
Yeah.
And it just, and then when as the time goes away,
you can visually see even the color in that.
Yep.
That helps you stay on
Amazon. Yeah. And then it just dings. I wish it had more warnings. Like I wish it would like every 15 minutes, but it just beeps. I don't like that it doesn't keep beeping until I turn it off because often I'll be hyper focused and won't hear it go. Where like if a phone alarm would just continue to go, but then I don't have the visual, so it's tricky. And I've tried like online timers that like block out one screen and they don't work because they're not analog. So this seems to be the best fit. So there's always something.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, but that does make a lot of sense, that being able to see that. And I know that FocusMate, you have talked about it before, and you and I actually blocked off.
We did one time. We did a body double together, and we both got like 30 things. It was amazing. We got stuff done.
It was amazing, and I've done that with one other person too, and it's just, I don't do it often enough, probably, and it's probably just because I have my plan, but I don't know why I don't do it more often, but I was so much more productive during that time when we did that.
Right.
Typically.
Because you're essentially creating an intentional appointment with yourself to get something done. But then there's somebody sitting there next to you, so you're less likely to get up. And one of the things I like about FocusMate too is you can share a link with somebody. So if you enjoyed working with somebody, you might see them a lot. I I'm in a couple groups in Focus Mate for neurodiverse, so like women with ADHD. So it's like specifically, so I get like prioritized and matched with them. So I've met some women, especially, which is funny because I didn't used to like working with women at all, and now I like love working with women. But so like the women, like, but you get matched with these women, you start to work with them frequently, you start to see them show up, and then yes, it's very much like the Pomodoro technique. Somebody just commented. But
Yeah.
I have to, but I can't just do it on a timer, right? Like I need that other person. But anyway, you can
What is
share a
the
link.
Pomodoro technique? I don't
So
know
it's
what
like
that is.
25 minutes on, 5-minute break.
Oh.
Or 50.
Okay.
So like Focus Mate does a 25-minute session, then a 5-minute break, and then you could do like schedule 25s, like so 25, 5, 25, 5. Or you can do like 50 and a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
But I've shared links with enough women that that's actually how I met my virtual assistant. Because I worked with her enough on Focus Mate, and I just had mentioned one day I was overwhelmed, and she said, well, I can just follow you along and help you figure it out. And now she works with us, and she's integrated in my staff. She's like, well, I'm a virtual assistant and I can help you. I have a child with autism. I get neurodiverse brains. And I was like,
wow.
And then I worked this morning from 5:30 till 9 with the same woman. She's in Canada, and we're both book lovers. We have that like little bit of thing in common. And then, but we won't talk. We'll talk every 2 because we both focus better without that interruption in between. So we'll set an intention for like the 2 sessions, but we'll use the chat to update. Like, I got this done. I got this done. I got this done. So I'm essentially being accountable to this person. She doesn't care what I get done, but
Right.
but it gives me the done list.
Right. It's like checking. It's like scratching it off your
Yeah,
to-do list.
it is. And then,
power.
Right. And I can kind of shut everything else off while I'm on it, right? Like I'm like, hey, I'm going to do these 4 things in this 2 hours. I'm going to try to get all 4 done. And if I don't, but like usually I can get 3 done and maybe the 4th started, and then moving back. Oh, I'm going to finish this next task and pick 3 more to work on, kind of thing in the next 2-hour block. She takes the 10-minute breaks. She logs off and runs around her house or something because she's also ADHD. She needs more movement breaks than I do. And then she hops back on when her time starts, but I just keep right on working. So that works out pretty well.
Let me ask you this, only because I kind of have an idea, but
Sure.
somebody who's watching right now, right, who is either that they know they have ADHD or they don't, but they're like, wow, everything she's saying sounds like me. And this is how my brain works. And, and I work in an environment that's pretty structured. And I don't know if I feel like it just like I want to do things differently and I'm not able to do things differently. How do I get my boss or my business partner?
Right.
And of course, I'm calling your husband out right now.
Yeah. So first of all,
you should invite him on.
Like 60% of entrepreneurs have ADHD is the like random study statistics I've seen.
Yeah, I know it's pretty high.
Yeah, like 90% of statistics are made up on the spot, though, right? That's
right.
And then sometimes I have to give jokes. That was a joke. That's probably autism. But I usually, so I try to pitch it like when I don't work as an employee anywhere because of that reason. I have been an employee, but I've usually had, ironically, bosses who are ADHD, so it doesn't matter so much. No, so like when I worked at the JCC, the executive director was ADHD. So like I tend to just find ADHD people most of the time to work with, and then try to find the non-ADHD people to help me get things done, right? The passing it off and execute this for me. So I've been thinking about this though, because I got hired to do this aquatics consulting job in Buffalo, which was my first consulting job.
Congratulations with
Thank you. And still have to finish the wrap up. So this is the ADHD, right? Something else is taking priority for 3 weeks now, and it needs to get done this week, no matter what. The aquatics director was having a hard time, and I saw some similarities. And even if he wasn't he may not be ADHD at all, but I see a lot of those like overwhelmed, can't prioritize, struggling here. And I was like, well, let's work together and we can talk through some things and see if we can find some strategies that might help. And then you can always pitch it to your boss. Like, I want to try this one thing differently. here's like, especially if a boss was giving you a performance review, like you're never getting this thing done, right? And like, well, you never meet your deadlines. Well, if you have ADHD, meeting deadlines can be really difficult. For me, meeting a deadline is like the challenge, right? Like it's the thrill. I get such a dopamine high off of meeting a deadline. So sometimes being an entrepreneur is hard because they're self-imposed deadlines and they don't mean a whole lot sometimes. So they don't have that same, like, I got it done before that application wasn't going to be, submitted again or whatever. And, but like, so say that's your performance review, right? So being able to go to your boss and saying, hey, you know what? I'm realizing I'm having a really hard time with deadlines because I think that this thing is only going to take me 3 hours. And I start it like 2 days before it's due. And then it turns out it's way more steps than I thought, because in ADHD, our brains work like say sending a marketing email. Like, it's not just sending a marketing email. You have to make a graphic and you have to, write the content. So you have to proofread it. And then you have to make sure you have it to the right, do you have the right email list created already? There's a whole bunch of other steps. Right. And so even like getting dressed in the morning, it's not just like get dressed, get ready to go to work. It's all separate little tasks, to the point where like taking my meds and brushing my teeth and drinking water in the morning, they're all 3 separate things, right? So even though a neurotypical may be like, well, I just take my pills and brush my teeth and drink water, that doesn't, there's 3 tasks. But being able to go to your boss and say, hey, I need help breaking these tasks into smaller pieces and with more deadlines, so that more frequent deadlines, so that the small tasks I'm getting to you on time, because I can't get this big task done because I don't understand all the steps.
Too big.
And so if you create like micro deadlines, then it's not, and then also the task doesn't feel so overwhelming, right? Because it's a small task. So like you can start to pair things together, right? Like, oh, I count out my vitamins for the whole month because I don't like to do that, counting them out, right? But I can do that with an audiobook on because I like to listen and count out my vitamins. And then in the morning, all I have to do is dump the thing open. And then when I'm on my last container, I know, oh, it's time to make a new set of, vitamins. And then I just do it the next day. And I don't have to think about, restocking it. And Amazon makes the stuff to show up when it's supposed to. So
right. So it's taking care of it.
A lot of subscriptions.
Because a task that would be, get this done. In my mind, I'm like, well, it's due, just do it. And when it's due. So there's really no excuse. And from what I'm hearing from you, it's like, no, it's just too big. Like we're miscalculating. And the smaller, I have to remember that.
Right. And so, and I always feel like as an ADHD person, that there are people that still, they may not be ADHD, that struggle with the same thing, or they're just an anxious person, or they're easily overwhelmed. Yeah. And so it, even, so my husband also has ADHD. He does not have autism in any capacity. So, but he has dyslexia and diagnosed with depression. And he's very open about, all of his stuff. So
yeah, he's awesome.
I'm not giving away any secrets. He's a recovering opiate addict that
used
opiates to self-medicate depression. And now that we have a depression diagnosis and the right meds, and we've gotten out of fight or flight, and he's productive. But if I give him 10 tasks to do this week, none of them get done. If I give him 2 get done. So it may be giving 2 tasks. And it's really hard as a neurodiverse person to manage an entire staff where everyone's pretty much neurodiverse. But at the same time, almost everybody at YoFresh is neurodiverse. But really? I think I might have one.
Is that with intention?
No, I think we just find each other. But I've also found that we tend to, because we find each other, that we work well with each other, or it's a catastrophic mess. One of the two. It's never one, most of the time we work well together, but we're also very understanding because we kind of get why the other person's having trouble. Especially if we know that there's a diagnosis. Like I'm like, oh, what's the diagnosis? Okay, that makes sense.
Oh, we know.
Like, oh, okay, and so being able to see like my staff's like spinning their wheels. And last week I gave them all like the afternoon, kind of my salaried staff got the afternoon off, no questions asked. Like it was beautiful out in Ohio. I said, go take the rest of the day off. We're not having any meetings. Sorry, my computer keeps shutting off. And send me a selfie of you being outside. And then I did the same thing with my hourly staff. They just had to finish their work that day.
Oh yeah, I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, they had to finish because they were
Was that
prepping
one?
for daycare the next day. And then I was like, go home and get outside and send me a selfie. And
Yeah. Oh
everybody's
yeah,
gonna
you
get a
sent
gift
that over
card
to our
for
mastermind group, I
being
think.
out, yeah, being outside. And it was great. And it was so fun. And was much needed self-care, mental health, because sometimes it can just be super overwhelming. And and May's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I've never done it before where I just gave everybody an afternoon off. But this
Yeah.
is also the first time at YoFresh where we've gotten to the point where it won't be a catastrophic mess if we take an
Right.
afternoon off. And we're just now at that point where like I couldn't even travel if I wanted to, for the past 3 years. So
Right.
we can breathe on a day, the world doesn't end. And that's a nice place
Yeah.
to be too.
So what was the feedback from everybody for
I
doing it?
haven't talked to anybody since because we've been busy moving houses. Oh God. Everything keeps changing in my life. I know.
Yeah. So
We're
you
moving
moving?
down the street. Debbie had a house. Landlord here, Debbie. Yeah,
Oh.
right down the street. It's bigger and better fit and on Broad. So yeah.
So wait, you were like your house where you live, or are you moving YoFresh?
No, our house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So my spare time right now has been moving
Really
things.
busy. Okay.
Yeah, moving
'Cause I
things
know
around.
your office is separate from
The kitchen.
YoFresh where everybody
Mhm.
else is. I mean, there's an office there, but I know I see the
Well,
background, so
it's
I
too
know where
busy
you
now
are.
too. Yeah, yeah, there's no way. It's almost too busy. We almost have too much stuff to even have office space in there, but we need some office space,
Really?
right? Yeah, we've
Well,
grown
hey,
so much.
that's a good problem.
Yeah.
You're growing.
Um, yeah. That Focus Mate, I think, is my number one tip for everybody. To
Is
the
it?
point where I use it so much that like Dawn started to use it on occasion. And Allie uses it a little bit here and there. And even Dawn's youngest is at Ohio State. We did a Focus Mate one afternoon because she was having trouble getting some stuff done. And I was like, hey, I'm like, here's my link. Just sign up and grab a time and we'll work together.
Yeah.
And she studied a little bit and did her laundry. And I got some marketing emails done or something and worked out
Do you have
great.
an affiliate link for Focus Make? 'Cause you should totally drop it.
No, because
In the
it's so cheap, they don't do affiliate
oh,
links. They
like,
just
yeah, you
go,
said
yeah, we
$5 a
just
month or
rave
something.
about it. Yeah, they
Here's a nickel.
yeah, we don't and I'm really picky about who I share my link with because I'm really intentional about the people that I want to have access to me at all times. Mhm. And
Oh, okay.
um yeah, because otherwise it's overwhelming. If too
I
much
gotcha.
input. Because
Yeah.
so a lot of AD I guess this is a good thing too, so segue.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
ADHD isn't necessarily, an inability to focus, it's the inability to filter out input. So if you think about the world today, you've got social media, all these notifications on your phone, notifications on your computer. You can't even go to the gas station without there being like ads in front of your face in a video. And I like to think about ADHD brains that kind of thrived in the hunter gatherer, and like we would have been those people out in the woods, and we notice like the squirrel move in the tree that nobody else sees, or like Dawn will see the owl that like I'm like, how do you even see that? Like it's so blended in. But then once he points it out to me, I can't not see it.
Yeah.
Or like I'll see something moving, in the world where nobody else would notice that out in nature. But in our world today, it's just so full of input, right? And then even on like LinkedIn, how many cold emails do you get? Oh, I see you're in food industry. Schedule a meeting with me. And so my response now is my time is $200 an hour. If you'd like to schedule a meeting, I'll send you an invoice and you can give me your pitch. And so if they're really serious about landing me as a client, they'll respond to me. They can always negotiate that down, but at least I'm saying,
I like
here's
that
my
approach.
value of my time and to gain access to me because I didn't ask you for this service,
Right.
nor does your thing, like I'm not even seeking this right now and it's going to be
Yeah.
a distraction. If you think this is that valuable to me because you've been following me on social, then here's my access and then we can go from there. And I kind of got that idea when I was
I love
consulting,
that.
right? Like just because like it's not just
I think you told me that before, and I said I was gonna do it.
nobody's bit. It's been amazing. Nobody actually
And
wants my business.
I haven't done it, but yes, you
Just
have shared that with me
it's that
before.
weird cold I didn't
Well,
ask
I
you.
mean, that's what they deserve when
Like
you're
it's
cold
just
calling on LinkedIn. I don't like
I
that. I
don't want
really
it.
don't.
Like stop doing it to me. It's just
Yeah.
unnecessary noise that I already have a hard time filtering out. So
So
I have to create rules, right?
yeah.
We don't like rules, but we have to. Um or guidelines, or operating. I like them to think about like operating procedures or operating system, right? Like I have to build my own operating system to like limit that noise. And just even like Calendly, I use Calendly to schedule my meetings with people. And I think I have it set up to where you can't book. I think you have to book 2 weeks out minimum, because it gives me time
Mentally prepare. Yeah,
because I can
I
mentally
do
prepare.
understand that because
And I don't have too many meetings in 1 week because that's too much input and I don't have time to get my output done. And I also block out the first week of every month and I don't have meetings unless it's an emergency or it's the only thing that will work, because that's my week to close out the last month because I have so much to do. I'm also curious how this would tie into my like menstrual cycle. So I want to try to start tracking that a little better, like using my period tracker app. I just want to figure out a way to add a little, how was my focus today? And
oh yeah.
because I'm curious what type of work I'm doing based on my cycles. I'm trying to figure out how to work that into my period tracker app because I don't want to have to try to connect data a different way. You know,
I'm
so
sure you'll create something on Airtable.
I'm sure.
So I
Yeah.
do have a question. With all the input of when you're running a business, right? And you have the social media
Mhm.
notifications and you're managing your personal email or your personal, couple different businesses. Then you have your email and I'm guessing probably a couple different email
I have your
addresses.
email. Yes. And I have
So
systems. Right.
how do you control that input? But
Yeah.
because ADHD or not,
Yeah.
overall, that's a lot of things happening at one
Correct.
time, and so how do you
So
control it?
my email. So, okay. A lot of people will be like, I don't want multiple email addresses, right? Because they're like, I don't want to log in somewhere else. Well, there's enough password managers out there now that are really inexpensive. Just get a password manager, have multiple emails so that you're separating those businesses. And I learned that the hard way too, like leaving Piranhas, that like I had everything connected there. And I was like, oh my gosh, like don't do that ever again. Like, and so we have a family email that Dawn and I kind of share, and that's like our log. We use it for logins for like Hulu and Netflix and that kind of stuff. And that's where like the home
That's
stuff
actually
goes.
really smart.
Yeah, so and it's just a shared one. We're starting to play with Google Tasks, so you can assign them to other people too, and like using them for using that email for like household tasks that need done. Just because tasks now in Google move on your calendar if you schedule them on a date. They didn't used to. Reminders did, but tasks.
Okay.
So anyway, I could go on a whole. I'll give you a whole hour on Google. So
No,
we're
I know. I
Google.
love
Yeah.
I love
We're Google here
using
because
yeah.
it works so well together with so many things, and because it works well mobile and cross-platform. Where like Outlook, if you start an email on your computer, you can't really pull it up well on your phone. It's server-based versus cloud-based stuff-ish. And so anyway, multiple email and addresses because it keeps things separate. So I have a personal one. I use my maiden name email for like signing up for things, so like email lists and stuff, so I don't ever get that crap in my personal inbox. And then I have one for like YoFresh, that's mine, and then we have like a fiscal email for YoFresh, and then we have a client facing email. I manage all three of those, but the intent too when I set that up was that hopefully someday I'm not managing all three and it's already set up so that somebody else can take over this email and somebody else can take over this email, and
Okay.
and then I only have to manage Caroline, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal. In my email itself, because I use Google, I pause my email inbox.
So
And
talk
that's
about
a
that a
great
little
feature.
bit.
Yeah, so there's a feature called like Boomerang you can add, and you can just pause your email. You can have a little response that says my email's paused, or you can just let it be. I only check email twice a day, and I schedule emails replies constantly. So I may happen to just still be in my email, and you respond to me, and I may respond to you right away. Like I responded to you this morning because we were having a
Oh, right.
conversation
Yeah.
back and forth, but I might schedule it to go out like even though it's 9 a.m. and I'm responding to your email that you just sent back, I'm going to respond to it and schedule it for 1 p.m. because I want to train people to know that I will respond to them, but I'm not going to respond instantly most of the time because it's not possible for me to maintain that all the
Yeah.
time. It's not realistic for my brain to be able to have that kind of response time all the time.
Interesting.
And so I have to kind of just set it up that way so that it appears that way to the outside, right? The smoke and mirrors. I have a system. I use 4 labels in Gmail itself. I use the star, the question mark, the alert, the little exclamation point, and the info. I only have the 4. So a star is like important, keep it. A question mark, I'm like, if I email somebody, and I have I'm waiting for their response. The info is just info I need to keep, but I don't want it like archived yet. I just want it to sit because I need that info for something I'm working on. And then the exclamation point is urgent. Like, you need to get to this crap.
Yeah.
So because we use Asana and there's a Gmail add-on, anything that's not immediate, I just send to Asana as a task. So if it's just oh, I got this newsletter and there's some great info and I want to sort through it, I just send it to Asana to deal with later. Sometimes I never ever go look at it again, and that's okay. But I get it out of my email so that my email inbox, almost every day I'm at inbox zero, like real quick, because of that system. And I don't even unpause my email until I send things to Asana, or I send things to my inbox to work on. And then I get out of my paused email and go back and I handle things, because then I don't see the input coming back in.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause you right there.
I made that all like that was
you gave a lot of stuff. So
not linear at all.
So you pause your email so that you don't get notifications, and you could do that with an app called Boomerang.
Yeah, I think it's Boomerang.
Or okay,
yeah, I think it's a free feature, or it's just in Gmail now altogether. I don't remember.
Okay, it may.
And I have a lot of workspace accounts too, so
okay. So you do that, and if it's important, or if it's just a task, if it's not important, you send it to Asana. Now, is that capability part of Asana, or do you have to use Zapier to connect the two?
There's a Gmail plugin for Asana. So
Is there? Okay, I don't know.
So on the right-hand side, where like tasks and keep and all that stuff is, in your little calendar, there's a little Asana plugin you can put in there.
Oh, easy. So you just connect the dots and then
and I could even assign the task to somebody else, like through my email. It's a little clunky. It's not real smooth and it's a little slow. There's also an Asana extension for Chrome, so you can like capture a link at any time, like send it to your Asana, which is nice.
That's nice.
That's side quest. But
yeah, no. Those are all great tools. I've used Asana before. I don't use it right now, but
it seems to work the best for our business.
My system works okay for me, and I still do, even though I'll do things digitally, I still do write things down as well.
I do too.
But when it comes to, those are the little to-do tasks I write down. When it comes to client stuff, I use actually in my Google Drive, my clients have folders, and in their folders are the agreements, their contracts, their like credentials or content or images or anything that I need for that client is all in their folder on my Google Drive, which makes it easy for me. But the day-to-day tasks,
organizing digital data for me is easy because you can have folders inside of folders, right? So you can have that.
Yes.
I've started even more so now archiving into Airtable, because I like how Airtable has the attachment feature, and the scanner I have here has programmable buttons. It's like touch screen buttons, and you can make as many as you want. Or I haven't hit the max capacity yet, at like 20, but I have it where it'll even scan and like drop into certain folders, or like it'll drop into Dropbox. Like if I push like this is personal, it'll scan right into my personal Dropbox, so I don't even have to like try to figure out, like scan it and then move it, right? I'm eliminating some steps, and I use Zapier or Zapier, however you want to say it, to create things, and then I have it upload to Airtable. Like, so I have it in two places basically. Because I just think it's easier for me to access, or like with the retreat stuff that I do, and I find a resource and I'm scanning it, it can go right into that Airtable where we organize all of our retreat data. Same thing with YoFresh, and I just wrote some Zaps the other day to scan bills to go into QuickBooks, so I don't have to open QuickBooks to enter the bill. I can just scan it and it'll upload into the receipt capture feature, but I had to pass it through Dropbox first. So sometimes it's a multi-step, but by creating that system through Zapier and making some things talk that normally don't talk, I can automate processes that normally might trip me up. So
you really, the key for your success and having ADHD is your superpower. Is it you're great at creating these systems
and workarounds and automations, right? Like the operating system, and then the automation / like of whatever I need to wherever I'm getting stuck, finding ways to skip it or pass through it without getting stuck there.
So what are the top 3 ways if you and I'm picking 3 just because it's an easy number, and I'm sure there's a ton of different things that you can do that help you automate your tasks. Are they like top 3 softwares or tools that
Zapier,
you use? I'm sorry,
Zapier,
what?
always. Zapier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Zapier, however you wanna say it.
I don't know how you say it.
I feel like it should be Zapier because you create a Zap, not a Zape, right?
I
Like, 'cause like
agree. I
but
say Zapier.
yeah, but Zapier phonetically makes sense to my brain, so, I use that all the time for automations. Airtable itself, especially the paid versions, have some of their own internal automations, like, we really wanted to do text message alerts for people when their deliveries got there, but it's an extra cost. But we were able to automate a system in Airtable. So when like Don drops off the delivery, he can snap a picture and it at least emails them. So if it got to the wrong house, we have like a document and it just includes the picture of where their food was dropped.
Oh, that's cool.
Because email's free and
Yeah,
text is costs whatever per text. And we're just not there. It's just this is a good step for where, this is a step in the right direction.
yeah.
Automating things with Airtable. You can automate so much in Airtable. They keep building extra things you can automate there. And then whatever task management system that works for you. So I like Google Tasks a lot, but there were a lot of limitations with it. So, we don't use it regularly. I use it for personal stuff more than anything.
Right.
But like Asana works really well for our team, and it helps keep things in one place, and threads together of conversations where like an email can get, you're kind of messy when you're talking about 4 different topics in one email.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. Zapier's my number one piece of
Yeah,
things
for
because it
automation.
makes things talk that normally don't talk.
So if anybody listening has not heard of Zapier,
Yeah.
would
And you need no
check it
code.
out
Yeah, you
because
don't even need code to do it. You can just
it
do it.
connects the platforms for you and tests it for you, and it will show you all the different ways that you can automate stuff from Google Sheets or Google Docs or Asana, like what Caroline's saying, or your email or what. There are a ton of different apps in Zapier that you can automate. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's how I got started on Airtable because we used like Squarespace when we very first started YoFresh. We built
Yeah.
our first website and I couldn't run the orders. I couldn't see them coming in as they got ordered. And I had no idea what was happening and I needed more data. So I used Zapier and Airtable to like get the stuff to come from Squarespace into Airtable so I could see our order counts as the week went on because we used to like our order deadline was like Friday at
I
noon and
remember.
we had to
Yeah.
cook Saturday morning and it was really stressful not having any idea what was coming down the pipeline until you download
Yeah.
the sheet. And so now it's that was how it got started and we still use that original Zap, but it's been modified a few times. We don't need as much information now because we've got a lot more in WooCommerce itself that does it on the
Right.
back end.
Yeah.
But we still do our delivery reports and our, all that kind of stuff and counts for the kitchen and things like that, right in Airtable. So
Awesome. Well, Caroline,
it's a
thank you so much.
constant evolution. That's my other
What is that?
it's a constant evolution. Like so, but
Oh,
people
so you're
with
telling me
ADHD
new
try
app.
to
I'm like,
think
wait,
that
what
like
is that?
yeah, like we tend to think like, oh, I made this system, it's done, it's never going to need tweaked again, but that's not true. It's going to need to evolve. So
Mm,
like, don't be upset if you have to revisit it because you see like like once you solve problem A, sometimes problem B will show up. And like you have to solve, or you see, oh my gosh, I'm actually getting stuck here. I thought the problem was this, but it's actually this, or it's both of these things. And so now you have to kind of modify, but it's not so bad.
oh, Megan
Yes,
wants
I've
to
been
know.
thinking about that. I've been thinking about some type of thing like that. So yeah, yes, that's Megan.
Yes. Do you two know each other?
I don't.
Okay, you guys need to connect. Megan's pretty awesome. And obviously you're pretty awesome too. So yeah, Megan, reach out to Caroline, follow her on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I'm sure she will post if she's planning on doing something there as well. Or if you do, I can always connect the two of you. But yeah, you are, I mean, the stuff that you create, and you've taught me a lot. Like, you're like, "Oh, but look," and I'm like, and it's like, it's so nice and refreshing because you really dig into it,
But
and
Don gets so mad because he's like, I just figured out this, and you're 4 more steps ahead now.
I know, but you know, you skip like the fluff that I know, and you get to the meaty part. And I like that because I don't need to hear the beginning. I can connect the dots myself, and time is important to me, and being like efficient with my time is important to me. So if I can go through a training and I can skip the stuff that I can figure out on my own, I can appreciate that. And you do. When you show me something, you get right to the good stuff. And you allow me to go back if I have a question, but you're like, okay, let's just go here. I'm like, perfect. So
Yeah, it depends. It's knowing your audience too, right? And
yeah, right.
time,
That's true.
because I can always back up, but like there's
Yeah.
nothing worse than a class when they start out and you're like, oh my gosh, I already know this. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and so yeah. So
Yeah, no, that's true. Anyhow, and we are almost at 10 o'clock. I don't know if we went over or not.
mm,
No,
yeah,
we did with
yeah,
4
4
minutes. But
minutes.
anyhow, I just want to say thank you so much for hopping on. Ton of information that you shared. And I truly believe that this is so important. And I am learning all the time how many people I know, like Megan, she just put she's an ADHD entrepreneur. I had no idea. And then a mom of 2 neurospicy, which I love that she used. She used that
They're
word.
nugget spices, right? Because like kids are
They're
nuggets.
nugget spicy.
Spicy nuggets. You know, and I just try to explain to people too that like you have to build what works for you, because what works for me might not work for you. Um, and that, you know, we work really hard. I think a lot of people with ADHD, we work really hard behind the scenes. So, you know, I'm talking to you and it's clearly not been linear, right? But if I was doing a presentation, it would come out at the end as linear. And people are like, I don't know why you think you can't write linear presentations. Like, you're fine. I'm like, you have no idea how this came out of my brain. It came out as a
Right.
jumbled mess, which makes that easier to edit and move things around. But that doesn't mean because it's cohesive at the end, it came out that way. So I don't want people to compare my like finished product, which I'm not even just Caroline, but like, 'cause I'm not finished in any capacity, but to the work that went on behind the scenes, and that like, it really is probably more work behind the scenes than a lot of people even understand. For me to even like do this today, right? Like I had to remember to like take a shower and put eyeliner on. And, you know, there's a lot of steps this morning that are not in my normal routine in the morning
Yeah.
to be here today, which is fine, but there's extra steps and it
Yeah.
takes.
Well, I appreciate you showering.
You're
Although
welcome.
you didn't have to shower because I wouldn't have known, but it's virtual.
It
But
was more about the hair for the shower,
I
because I didn't want the pineapple bun, but 'cause normally on Tuesdays, I don't shower till after I get out of the pool teaching swim lessons, and that's when I shower.
I
So
get that though.
yeah, like I go to the
You
gym
get
and then I shower after the lessons. So
it. Well, I appreciate you getting ready and hopping on and
you're welcome.
talking.
And
This is
that's the
awesome.
thing with ADHD too, like just normal care tasks can be really hard. So for
Good to
people.
know.
Mhm. So
All right, everybody, we will see you next Tuesday on Tuesday Talk. And thank you again, Caroline.
no, you're welcome. Anytime.
We'll see ya.
Bye.